Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. We have an update with Nick Appleyard, CEO of TriStar Gold. TriStar trades on the TSX-V under the ticker TSG and on the OTCQX under the ticker TSGZF. It's been a little while since we've had an update, so we will do a quick run through of the company and the project that they're developing in Brazil, as well as get into recent updates and Q&A. With me, I have my colleague Meg, who's going to help with questions, and there will be audience questions taken, so feel free to enter those in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And as always, this presentation will contain forward-looking statements. If you'd like to know more about those, you can find them on the company's presentation on their website. And with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce Nick Appleyard, CEO of TriStar. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Deborah. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Warm in Arizona.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's been record temperatures, I think, for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. No, no end in sight yet either. So, but we're moving ahead well, keeping busy, so it's all good.
Well, hopefully we can get some of that heat into the gold markets.
About time.
So why don't you start by giving us a little bit of an update and an overview, and then we'll jump into Q&A.
Yep. So, well, I'll just run through a quick couple of slides. I'm not going to do a walk through the whole deck, but as Deborah said, I'm going to go really look for some forward guidance here to tell you where we're going. So, there will be forward-looking statements. Just in case there are people who maybe forgotten or are new to the story, we are a single asset company. Castelo de Sonhos is located in the southern portion of Pará state near the border with Mato Grosso. Pará being one of the prime mining jurisdictions within Brazil, which sort of makes it by default one of the prime mining jurisdictions in Latin America. And within that jurisdiction, we have a great location with good access, grid power, airstrip, skilled workforce, everything you really need to build a mine. And we're also a long way away from the negative aspects, such as pristine reserve, Amazon or indigenous populations. So we've got what you need and we haven't got any of what you don't want. So it's a very, very good location. And just for a status of the project, everyone was asked what stage we're at. We've completed a PFS. We're deep into the permitting process now. And really the story I want to tell you today, or the update I want to give you today, is about that permitting and how we see it going and what the next stages are. So just a little detail on the project. It's a fairly large property. We have developed 1.8 million ounces of indicated resources, another 700,000 ounces of inferred. So it's a fairly large deposit. Palha Plaça are very, very similar to some very profitable mines around the world, most notably Tarkwa, which is a massively profitable mine in Ghana. We are advancing the property, as I said, through permitting. We've got strong economics from a PFS. As a nice thing, I think, for investors, we've had serious investments from both Royal Gold and Oramet, both after, they big companies who do some due diligence on us and look at us and then go ahead with an investment. So that sort of gives a nice validation from companies who have seen a lot of data, seen a lot of projects and gone forward with this based on the fact that they believe it will get into production. The property itself, or the mine, very, very simple, shallow, open pits. The cleanest deposit I've ever come across in my career. It's 98% gold recovery, not a grain of sulfide that I've ever seen on site, which makes it environmentally very, very clean. And, those resource numbers I gave you, we believe there's a significant upside beyond that. We understand the geology very well, so it's really a matter of more development, more drilling to take it further. So the PFS was published in November of 2021. Just to give you the highlights of that, the gold reserve is 1.4 million ounces, average annual production about 120,000 ounces per year. Importantly, that's up to close to 150,000 ounces a year for the first 6 years, with, we believe, possible to extend that high-grade production time. Capital is a manageable $260 million, which is a 2021 number. Everyone was asked about inflation, so I'll deal with that directly. There will be some inflation on that number. We don't believe it's going to be too excessive because we've also got a mine fleet in there, which will probably be removed and replaced with contractor mining. So we don't think that number is going to escalate too much. Obviously, strong rate of return, strong net present value at $1,550 gold. And those numbers are pre-tax and post-tax, you can see on the screen there, and an all-in sustaining of 900. So really robust numbers with quite conservative gold prices. And I think a lot of upside, a lot of potential still to be extracted from this property. Just sensitivity to gold price, obviously, that was done at $1,550. If we look at the same sort of MPVs at today, I haven't looked at the gold today, but I presume we're still well over 1,900. So your IRRs and your MPVs will have gone up significantly, maybe countered a little bit by the inflation in CapEx and OpEx, but not a great deal. So, the project is looking better now than it was when we published it and looking stronger. So this is the critical bit that I really want to share with everybody today. We've been advancing the property now for the last few years through PFS, completion of our environmental studies, application for the environmental permit in 2022. And now, we've had a year and a half of working on that, and we're getting very, very close to the end. As you can see, that 2023 there, it's the two major milestones were the site inspection and the public meetings. The site inspection took place in June and went very, very smoothly. We don't expect nothing negative has come out of it, and no negative comments were really relayed back to us with the interaction with the state authorities. So we are now moving on to the next and the final hurdle or milestone, which is the public meetings. We're currently anticipating around November for that, although the date isn't set yet in stone, but we are looking at November. And again, it's not expecting any adverse impact from those meetings. We don't feel any pushback from the local communities at all, and there don't seem to be any organised groups against the project or against the company. So we are expecting smooth sailing through that and the issuance of a license shortly after that meeting, whether it be late this year or early next year. So that's where we're at now. And then the other thing, obviously, to mention in that same breath as that is that permit is the major environmental permit, and we see it as a major, probably the biggest de-risking point of this project life. So, a major value add for the company. Just mentioning as a company what we are right now, you can see from the stock graph there that it's been flat for the last year. Really, as we go through permitting, waiting for these permits to come through. If I was a chartist, like I used to be once in a previous lifetime, it would say that's getting wound up nice and tight for a breakout. So, that permit hopefully will supply that breakout. On the rest of it, you can see we've got about 4 million Canadian in cash. That's enough for us to get through the phase we're in now, get into next year. At some point, we'll need to top it up a little bit, depending on what decision is made moving forward upon receipt of the permit. Yep, I think that's probably the update I want to give, and we'll see if we've got any questions. But yeah, the whole story right now is the permit, unlocking the value, and ending up with a multi-million ounce resource with the permit, and there are very, very few of these around.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. We did have some questions for you about permitting. So you mentioned the site visit that just happened in June, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about what the purpose of the visit was and what did the government look for or do while on site?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, as our application for the permit, we submit our EIA and the RIMA, which are two separate documents you're required to submit in Brazil. And these are monster documents, 2,500 pages, covering every aspect of environment, social, anthropological, archaeological, that we're going to do, and as well as a description of the project itself. So, in some ways, the site visit is, I think they're really looking for two things. They want to send a multidisciplinary team down. I believe they sent 5 or 6 people to site, covering geology, the tailings dam reviewer, anthropology, flora and fauna. And part of it is to make, how would you say, check that what we've written in our documents that we've submitted that they've been reviewing looks like the same as they see on site themselves. So we're not describing a paradise and then there's something completely different in front of them. So they're ground truthing what we've told them. But they're also, and quite importantly in this process, looking to make sure that we're a good steward of the project now and that we have complied with everything and that we are being careful with the environment and we're doing everything correctly. So they do look for not just what will happen if you build a plant here, but it's like, okay, you've got 5 or 6 four-wheel drives here. Where are you cleaning them? Where are you fueling them? Is there oil on the ground? I mean, they're making sure you're doing everything right. You've got a CAM. Are you handling your wastewater correctly? So they review all of that stuff to make sure you're a good custodian of the property now. So you don't get a formal sort of certificate that said, yes, you've passed, but the interaction was all positive. There were no real complaints about anything we were doing. And, the comments that we've received back we've responded to very simply, and there was nothing there that made us anxious at all. So, I think for me, one of the big issues was, tailings dams in Brazil generate a lot of questions always, as they should, because, given the recent history. Their tailings dam reviewer was part of the group, and he seemed complimentary and seemed to be keen to work with our team and interact with them about our dam, and was very positive on our plans and how we decided to approach that. And I think he recognized that we've got probably the best possible scenario is what we've selected.
Got it. Thank you. So can you tell us then what are the next steps in the permitting process after the site visit?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we are talking with state authorities about the location and date of the public meeting. That's really the big one. We did receive, like I said, a few comments back from them subsequent to the site visit. They'll be responded to, they're being responded to now. We have to formally file them with the government, but that's not an issue or a time constraint on us. It's really once they select a date and a location for the public meeting, then they have to sort of file that in their publicly and within Brazil. That starts a 45-day timer where people can comment and question ahead of the public meeting. This is a little different process than I'm used to, because a lot of the questions and comments come before the public meeting. People are given information, they can question and comment, and those questions and comments are dealt with at the meeting. And then after the public meeting, effectively, the government goes away, hopefully satisfied that we've answered all of those questions, and that we've already answered their questions from the site visit and from the review of the property, and then in the issuance of the permit quite quickly. There is the possibility that they come back and say, oh, well, you were given this question and we're not satisfied with your answer. Can you take another few weeks and answer this one again? That's a possibility, but it's not part of a defined time frame. It's really, hopefully, you've answered everything by the meeting, and you move forward from there. So really, meeting in November if we push for that date, and then an issuance sometime after that.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And can you remind us of the progress of the permitting work that's been achieved over the past year since the July 2022 initial application?
Really, I mean, we submitted, when you submitted in July last year, that's all the documentation from our side was complete. You then really have to wait for the government to put their team together who is going to deal with this, because, as I said, these are big reports, you need a multidisciplinary team to evaluate it. So it took them quite a while before they could get their team, and it was this year before they really got working on it. What we did internally was we found a consultant who knows the process really well, and he basically did a fake site visit for us, like last November, December, noting everything, allowing us to go through and fix the small things to make sure that we were all ready for it, training our team on how to do the interaction properly with the state authorities and what to expect from them. So we went through that sort of mock, that's a better word, a mock practice, a mock visit. I think that helped us a lot. But then really once the government team was compiled and they started working on our EIA, which was earlier this year, at that point then sort of weekly, if not daily, interaction between the state authorities and our team has been taking place trying to explain it. We did do something which we believe we're one of the first companies to do, which was when they compiled that team and they said they're going to start their evaluation, we offered to send up a team of experts to the state capital and present the property to them, allowing them to sort of have a clearer picture of the property rather than try and get that picture from reading it themselves, allowing them to question people on why decisions were made at certain points. And apparently that really helped in streamlining the process as well. Having our tailings dam expert, having our mining experts available saying, oh, this is why the plant's here, this is why this waste dump is here. straight off the bat, and having an interactive discussion on that rather than someone writing a report saying, can you tell me why this is? It gets sent out, you get 4 weeks to reply. It's, having that in person in one time at the beginning of the process really streamline things.
Got it. Thank you. And we have some technical questions. We'll start with one from the audience. What are the prospects for deep drilling in terms of costs and potential reserves?
Yeah, our pits as they are now have quite flat bottoms on them, which means sort of to me that we could have drilled deeper, and even at 1550, the pits would have gone deeper and been extended. Geologically, we understand the deposit well. It was Louis fan that was, many, many miles or kilometers across and down dip. And all we're looking at now is the little bit of it that scratches within 100 meters of surface. And we know that it's probably about 2 kilometers under the ground it meets. So you've got all of that extent there. It's all there. It's really just a matter of at what point the economics say you can, and how far you can go deeper to chase it. But yeah, there's a lot of gold in the whole fan, but how much of it, whether we're chasing now down to 100 meters, if that goes down to 150 meters, simple maths tells you might get a 50% increase in reserves in the same area. But you've also got a long strike where we haven't yet drilled. So there's a lot more potential in this in both a long strike and deeper. And when I'm saying deeper, like I said, I'm talking down 150 meters, not really deep holes. You see some drill hole companies drilling 300-400 meter drill holes. At our grades, they're probably not realistic at this point, to have an open pit that deep here. But if we find the higher grade zones, you may end up with a Jacobina style scenario where you start with these open pits, identify the higher grades, and then go underground on that. And then, it's sort of limitless really because it keeps going.
Got it. Thank you. And is there any drilling happening currently or planned for in the near term?
Nothing currently, nothing planned for the near term. No, we want to get through this permit right now. And, with the market the way it is, I think adding 500,000 ounces wouldn't really change much to our capitalization or our share price. And it would just mean dilution and getting the money to do that drilling. So,
thank you. And you've completed a pre-feasibility study in 2021. What additional work, if any, would need to be completed on site to start a feasibility level study?
Yeah, we're sort of ready to start. A lot of, we're taking this time now to plan the work we want to do for a feasibility study and that's needed to be done. The big part of the feasibility study, though, would be the infill drilling to upgrade the indicator resources or a percentage of them to measured. That's really the big dollar ticket item and the time constraint on that. But apart from that, it would be a very simple feasibility study because it's a simple project. There's no trade-offs to do. We know the process. We know where the waste dumps are going. The resource model would just need updating and the cost estimation done. So it would be a pretty simple study. But the hurdle is the drilling for the measured resources to give us proven reserves. And that also does feed into, I'll head off, I'm sure there's a question coming. Do we take it forward or does someone else? And that the amount of measured drilling you'd need to do probably varies. If a smaller company like us is doing it on our own, and we've got to finance it through banks and other institutions, they're going to want more measured, they're going to want less risk. If a big company is doing this themselves, and they don't need to rely on third-party lenders so much, you'd do less, because the drilling is really to give confidence to the lenders and that. We know the gold's there, so for us, it's not an issue. So there is a bit of a component to that answer on who is going to actually build it and run it at the end of the day.
And one more follow-on question from that. So this drilling and the work on the feasibility, in order for any of that to start, regardless of who would do it, would it make the most sense to wait for this LP permit before any of that begins?
Yeah, I think so. The hurdle to stop that beginning now or 6 months ago is the market and the share price. So, you get the LP permit and we start unlocking more value. That's when we would want to be moving forward to the feasibility study. Once we've unlocked the value, de-risked it, maybe had some more interest or maybe even considered a partner in the project, and get more eyes on the company. It would be one of very, very few multi-million ounce assets with a permit ready to go. So to me, it seems logical that the value's got to be higher at that point, and that would allow us then to get the money to do the FS.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so moving over to talk a bit about Brazil. There's been some news headlines out this month about a 5-day general strike at the country's mining regulator. Is this expected to impact the permitting process at all? Are you expecting additional delays?
No, not for our permitting process. We don't see that. I mean, the permitting process is mainly SEMAS, the state environmental agency, and that they're not on strike. It's the mining agency which seems to be on strike. I mean, there are things that we require from them and are working on that with them, and that they're going to be delayed a little bit, but it's not the permit, so it shouldn't impact us right now.
Okay. And Brazil continues to stand out as one of the top pro-mining jurisdictions in South America. Do you feel like it has become easier to obtain a mining permit in Brazil, or is this just a factor of it becoming more difficult to permit in other jurisdictions in Latin America?
A little bit of both. I think there is, I was talking to someone about it earlier on today, there's a few things happening that, other companies have got harder. Brazil is looking for more international, investment like this. And we're also, talking to my team when their interaction with the mining agencies and the state or environmental agencies, they say there's a new generation of younger professionals who are keen and really want to get things going in these agencies. It's not maybe the older sort of generation who are a little bit more, slower and used to working in an old-fashioned Brazilian way, maybe I'll put it say that. So there is a few things happening at once, but, I've heard a few times from my team that they're really impressed with the energy and the youthful professionalism from the people they're working with as their counterparts in the state authorities now. So I think that is getting better. That's a really good sign to have, young professionals who are keen on doing a good job and doing things properly.
You talked a little bit earlier about your, decision point of, do you try and sell this or do you build it yourself? Like, how do you consider those two options? Would you look at both, or are you favoring a takeover over building it yourself?
I think I would, I've been through starting up a mine a few times now, and it's a tough it's a challenge to do that. If you've got an engineering department and an operating team and a development team and all of that, and who've done this a few times, you can do it pretty easily. If you haven't got those teams in place, you've got to build them from scratch, and that's really tough. So I see, obviously the construction, the financing, the construction and early operation phase as a real challenge for someone to build a team and do a first time, mine, especially on a mine like this, which is going to be a large scale producer. It's going to have a lot of attention on it. We're going to be looking at 160, 170,000 ounces a year for the first year or two. You want to have really good people. You want to have a solid team that works together well. It's hard to put that team together from people you can hire, on the fly, because the really good people are already working in good teams. So I see a lot of value in having a company which have got a team in place and know how to do it, being able to do that. So I think obviously the favored route would be some form of working with or selling to another company who can do it more efficiently than us, and then our shareholders can sort of decide whether they stay with that new company or take some liquidity out.
And you think the LP will be a big milestone towards getting interested parties to actually step forward with a bid?
Yeah, no, the companies we spoke to all want the permit to come through. And so I think it is. It really is the main thing. When I was working corp dev 15 years ago, it was all about ounces in the ground and how big it was going to be. Now you speak to people and it's like, well, we'll look at the technical stuff later. What's your community support like, and can you permit the project? So it's changed, and I think this is the major hurdle.
Okay. And can you just remind us one last time of the upcoming catalyst for the company over the next, say, 3 to 6 months?
So the upcoming catalysts are going to be the really public meeting hopefully in November is a really big deal. And following that, the issuance of the LP, we would hope for that fairly shortly afterwards. So they're big catalysts, which are very important for the development of this asset and the future of this company. After that, then the board decides how we move forward and what we do. But I think those two are, critical. And I say the public meeting as well because once you know that that's gone smoothly, you're sort of just on a downhill slope, just waiting for the issuance at that point.
Well, it sounds like you've made good progress towards obtaining those permits. I don't have any additional questions. Magda, do you have anything further?
No, thank you.
And I don't see any audience questions. So thanks so much for taking the time to update us. And yeah, looking forward to an exciting fall and winter for TriStar.
It's going to be once that public hearing, we get those dates, we get into that. It's I know my team is super excited about it. We're confident it's going to go well. And it feels like the culmination of a lot of work. 7 years here now at TriStar to get to this point, and we're within a couple of months. It's really exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much, Nick. Good luck with the heat.
Yeah.
And if anyone has any further questions or wants a one-on-one call, by all means, reach out. Magda and I can arrange that for you.